Hey, and we are live. I am Justin with the DIY Audio Guy YouTube channel, and here with me is my partner in crime, from Toyd's DIY. What is going on, my friend? You doing all right?
I am. What do you think of the new hat?
Did you cut that with a laser, like on the leather, and then put the leather on the hat?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I'm going to start I've avoided getting a laser because I just don't feel like I have time to really mess with a laser.
Sure.
And I'm wondering maybe this year will be the year I get one. Because every now and then a
So,
company will reach out and offer one. I'm all like, I don't want to make a video of a laser. I don't have time to figure out how to use it. Yeah.
well, and there is some truth to that, but here's the deal. I've actually been doing math on it, and I think the laser is the most affordable DIY tool out of all of them because you can start with just like a $200 laser if you really wanted to, but really the best ones probably start around $1,000. But even at $1,000, let's just say you sell hats like this that are custom
Mhm.
made. I mean, the hat's what, like, I don't know, all this together is
Yeah.
about $10 probably. So
I'll,
sell them for 20,
I'll tell you this, and I think there's plenty of room in the marketplace for it
30.
still. My sister-in-law got a Glowforge a couple of years ago,
Oh, nice.
and she has used it so much that she broke it. Just wore it out, right? Parts are falling off. She's just using it so much. And she said that apparently the makers refer to the Glowforge as the Slow Forge, and they've had to replace it. And then they said, you know what, we're going to upgrade, and they've upgraded to something that's 4 times the price of a Glowforge. That's 20 times the machine, and they're getting ready to really like industrial level, like if you ever buy anything from Mobile Solutions, their router bit trays are all laser cut in 1/4 inch acrylic or maybe
Oh,
half
yeah.
inch. And so they're getting ready to gear up, do some awesome stuff. And I'm thinking, I don't want to fool with one, but maybe I need to start commissioning stuff done and have her make it so she could sell it or something like that. But I think lasers are kind of cool. I'd rather have a laser than a 3D printer.
Yeah, I think lasers are actually a lot more doable than the only problem with the laser. And I'll tell you that you're right, though. I would rather have a laser than a 3D printer. I have both and a CNC. And I think out of all of them, I would start with the laser because you can get a much better laser for the same price as you get an entry level CNC.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Vice versa, and they can do similar things. I'm not going to say they do the same thing because that's not true, but they can do similar things.
Let me take a second to just give a quick shout out to some of the good people in the chat. Blake is here as always. He has a good point. Blake always has good points. You don't need a large build plate. You can put a laser on a 3D printer. I can't say words. Elliot Designs is here. A good friend Mullen is here. Sean Mullen out there trying to turn that old car he dug out of a field into a demo vehicle. This guy
cool.
here, I know who he is, but I hear he's really handsome. And Paul is here. Good to see you, Paul. There's Kevin. I haven't seen Kevin before in the chat. Maybe that's a new one. Andy's popped in to say hi. And of course, El Fuego popped in. And so we hope El Fuego's feeling better. And it's always good to have everybody in the chat. Thank you all so much for tuning in. True voice of reason. Here we go. We do this because y'all watch. If you didn't watch, we wouldn't do it. And so we'd love to see everybody in the chat. And feel free to say hi. If you're new to the stream, don't be afraid to say hi. If there's something really important you want to make sure we see, it never hurts to drop a super chat because we sometimes, especially if the show gets busy, it's impossible to keep up with all the chat. And if I get quiet, it's because I'm watching the chat for something cool. So there you go.
So I do want to say this real quick before we get started. I agree with what, first of all, I want to say I agree with what Blake said. You can easily just put a laser on a 3D printer or even a CNC if you have one.
Yes.
The only thing I will say is you got to be careful with lasers, just like you got to be careful with speaker specs. Lasers will say something like 10 watts or 20 watt lasers. You got to be careful what they're referring to. Are they referring to the input or the output power?
Is that peak or RMS?
Exactly. Peak or RMS. Because I'm seriously, I have a $200 laser that says something like it's 20 watts or 15 watts or something. It's 5. It's a 5-watt output, but it takes
2 amp fuse on it.
It brings 20 watts in, puts 5 out. It's so inefficient, but So I will tell you this though, I have an X Tool D1 that I did with this hat. It literally, a D1 Pro, this thing took like 3 minutes to cut out. And that was it. It was done.
It looks clean and precise. Looks crisp.
Yeah. And that was one time. It was done. It might not even been 3 minutes. I mean, that might be like on the high side there, but.
All right. Well, on to the topic. What do you say?
Oh yeah, I'm excited about the topic. This is a good topic.
The name of our show is Sound Advice, and so our topic is advice. And Nick, I want to take a moment to share advice people have shared with you, advice you have for other people, so that we can share advice. And also, what's some bad advice that you've gotten that you're all like, oh man, I tried that and that didn't work. What's some really bad advice that you've gotten?
I'm going to share what I think is the worst advice anyone could share, anyone, and yet it is the most common advice that I see on audio forums. And it is actually the reason why I created my forum in general. My phone is dinging. Let me shut that off. So here it is. I have run into thousands of people. In fact, I was one of these people at one time that said, how do I design my own crossover? I see all these awesome drivers. I want to build my own speakers from scratch. How do I do it? And you know what answer I get back, Justin?
I asked that question too. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
What's the answer?
What do you know what the answer is? I don't want to.
I think I know, but I don't want to steal your thunder.
Okay. Well, you're not going to hurt my feelings if you say it wrong.
The advice is you're too stupid. Go and use a pre-made plan. Don't try to make your own.
That's exact advice they get. It's not even advice.
They never say you're too stupid, but the way they say it, you can clearly tell they mean you're too stupid. Go away.
Elliot Farr, cable risers are worse advice. Now, they basically do though. They dismiss what you want to do. You'll have a whole plan of speaker parts and everything you want to use, and they're saying, no, just go. There's too many good plans. I don't understand. And these are people with the knowledge that can help you how to do it. Now, I have no problem telling people, hey, look, if you want to get started with this, figure out how much you want to dig into this, because if you do, you're going to have to get some measurement equipment. You know, if you really want to do this properly, you know, we're going to get a measurement microphone. We're going to get DATs. We're going to get a couple things together, and we'll, on our website, walk people through it. In fact, I have on my highest tier for Patreon, I help people with their crossovers. One of the guys recently, he just sent me a picture today. I didn't get a chance to reply back to him of all the speakers he designed. He got me all of the responses that we needed, and I taught him how to take the measurements one-on-one. He got me the responses. We looked at the crossovers one-on-one together and built him some really nice speakers. And guess what? Now he's building more and more and more. And every time he's learning a little bit more, and he'll start now with some crossovers and send me some ideas and say, you know, what can I get your feedback? What do you see? What don't you see? What are some things? And just yesterday, I had a guy call me, same thing. He had issues with a crossover. Once again, Patreon. We're working on some things together. And I think that's the thing, because I don't know a great place to teach these things. And I find too many people that just tell you, don't do it. Guys, this is far too fun of a hobby to just not do it.
And this is the frustrating thing about that advice is it's actually pretty good advice. If someone has never done, you know, especially someone with no experience with soldering or anything at all like that, it's actually really good advice. The problem is the way the advice is given. It's never given, hey, the right way to give the advice is, hey, we'd love to help you with that. Tell us about your experience building crossovers first. Oh, okay. How about if instead we suggest, you know, a kit of some type? And I built my home theater speakers because I was given that advice, and I'm glad I followed the advice, because building a crossover it's a challenge. It's a challenge everyone should try, because there's something about when it goes together and it works, you just feel so good about yourself. And of course, when it fails, you do something stupid, make a YouTube video showing yourself failing, right? But failure is just part of it, right? So
as long as you're okay,
it's not bad advice. It's just it's always given with an air of superiority. It's all like, well, you're not smart enough, so go, you know, come back later when you figure out all the answers, then we'll tell you the answers.
And so I don't even care if you've ever built a speaker. If you want to start with your own design, I'm fine with that, as long as you've listened to speakers before, because you should have a decent idea of what you want to hear, you know, decent idea of what, you know, if you've built a bad speaker or not, basically. But the one thing that I will say is either way, as long as you're willing to learn, as long as you don't expect the community to do the work for you, because there's a difference. There are some people out there that want to take the measurements and just say, here, give me a crossover for this, and I'm done. That's not how it works. Like, I'm willing to teach people that want to learn. That's my whole point. I wouldn't have this channel if I didn't want people to learn. And maybe someday you'll even teach me something, and I'm fine with that. Like, that would be great if you could share your knowledge back with me. But I feel like that's the thing.
And I'm right there with you. I like to know how things work. And I've learned that the best way to learn things is to figure them out on your own. There is no better way to understand how things go together than to try to put things together and they break and fail when you put them together. And yes, a pre-made kit's a good place to start, right? It's a good place to start, but no, we're not going to help you is not good advice.
Right. That my worst. That's my least favorite advice out of everyone, and it really is the reason why I started my whole forum, is because I got tired of people saying that. Look, there's also a lot of people that get on the forum that just say, "Oh, here's some parts, and what do you got? What do you got? Design something for me." It's like, right. No,
I lost
not doing that either. But
I lost the comment that Mullen had up a minute ago, and I wanted to point that out and make a comment about that. I do get quite annoyed when someone asks me a question and I give them an answer. Here's my thoughts, here's my opinion, and they're all like, "Are you sure?" No, I'm just lying to you. I just want to see if you can catch your car on fire, buddy. It's like, I could be wrong. I don't know everything. I make mistakes, but like, if you're going to ask for my advice and then be all like, "I don't know about that," okay.
So, and I do want to agree. I don't disagree with what Blake has said or what Elliot has said. Blake said, "Hey, I think building a pre-designed kit is definitely the best place to start." I don't disagree with that. It probably is the best place for most people to start. I don't disagree with that. But in the same instance, if someone gets very excited about this idea that they have in their head, and the first response is, "This is what I want to do," and their first response is, "Don't do it. You're an idiot. Right. Just stop doing it." What do you think they want to do? You think they want to continue with the hobby? Like a lot of people, they'll just shut down and just be like, "Oh, okay."
I always try to make sure we use family-friendly language on the show and on my channel, but I'm just going to come right out and say this. Sometimes people are just shit testing you. Let's see if this person's serious and they want to stick around. Let's see if it's hazing. All right. Let's see if they'll put up with our crap for a while, and then we'll let them in on the secrets.
Yeah, I don't know. I do feel like there are a lot of people in general that don't like to help, and there are definitely people that do like to help too. So I'm not going to say there isn't, because that's just not true.
All right, I got some advice for you. I watched a lot of woodworking channels because I'm always trying to make my woodworking skills a lot better, and I got a couple of tool advices for you. And I got this piece of advice from someone I know locally who's a pretty good woodworker, and he said, "Never buy short clamps." He said, "Only buy long clamps because you can shorten clamps, but you can't make a clamp longer." And I followed his advice for a while, and it's terrible advice.
Really?
Because if you just go buy 3-foot long bar clamps, then these things, some of my workbenches aren't 3 foot tall. My main rolling table I use as an assembly table. And if I got a clamp sitting down to the workbench, then the clamp is either dragging the ground or sticking 3 feet in the air. Mm. And I went and I bought about exactly four of these little 6-inch Harbor Freight clamps. And I'm of the opinion that you need a couple of these, and you maybe need 4 of these, maybe 4 12-inch clamps, maybe 4 24-inch clamps. And how often do you actually need a 36-inch bar clamp?
So can I expand upon that advice?
Unless you're going to disagree with me, and then you can't.
No, I was going to say that there might be a better way to do that.
Yes.
Have you seen the pipe clamps?
I've got a couple. They're like 5 foot long. I never use them because they're always too big.
Well, no, you can actually buy the ends
and buy smaller pipe. Yeah.
Well, you can have different sized pipes, and those just screw on and screw off. So you can literally unscrew it and screw it back up, because they go on threads, right? So they go on thread inserts. So I was going to say, one thing you can always do if you don't want a bunch of already finished clamps, which I don't know why you wouldn't necessarily, but you could buy those and just change out the pipe when you need a different size as well.
Yeah.
Wait, what did Blake say?
Oh, he was saying that he sends people to your compression driver video.
Oh, great. I don't remember that one, so he'll have to. I'm not sure what that one is.
But after a while, you've made a couple hundred, and you're like, I have no idea which video that was.
I don't know what it is. But thank you. AJC said something. Man, I need to email AJC. I have lost over the last month. I was just thinking about that today. Over the last month, I have lost contact with AJC. I need to email him. So I appreciate him.
Great. I went and bought some good ones. Bought them off Amazon that have the strap ratchets, and so it stays on the spool, and that's really handy. And I got one more tool advice. I'll hand it over to you. It's kind of a small one. I was watching. There's a woodworking channel that I enjoy quite a bit. I think it's called 731 Woodworks. It's a tall bald guy, right? So anytime I see a bald guy on TV, I gotta watch him because it's like we're like a club, right? And he said that take the push stick that came with your table saw and throw it away. This kind of style push stick, because apparently the hard plastic will shatter if it hits the blade. And he said this was from Bow Products. I actually threw a link to this in the description. And it has a replaceable, like hard, like shoe plastic, like on the bottom of your shoe kind of thing. And if your blade hits it, it won't shatter. And that's just, you can turn it around and reuse it once. And I have watched Easy Swan before. That guy makes like, wow, that guy can make anything. He is brilliant. And so there's some advice for you. Don't use the plastic, hard plastic. Soft plastic works better, but you want a push stick that won't shatter if it hits the blade.
You know, it's interesting. That's actually pretty interesting. I never thought of that. Of course, a lot of people make their own out of wood as well, which also wouldn't shatter. But I like that idea because then you can replace it. You don't have to remake one. I have something like that, and it might be by the same company, and it goes in your Now I lost my train of thoughts. Why can I not think of it? The 1-inch, the 7/8 inch or 1-inch slot.
Oh, it goes in the slot. Yeah, it's a featherboard.
Miter slot. The miter slot.
They make a featherboard. They make a featherboard. Same color, same replaceable stuff. It's a really good featherboard.
I have that. Yeah, and then when you push your wood against it, it won't push out, or it'll keep it nice and even. Yeah, that thing's awesome.
Much better than the plastic featherboard. So I got on. So I saw some videos of his where he's using these Bow products. I'm like, I got to get those. These are pretty good. Anything you
and they also have the replaceable fins on those ones too.
Yep. Here's somebody I haven't seen the chat before. Triamp Hi-Fi. You can guess what I think of passive crossovers. I want to mix and match drivers too much.
Yeah. No, there's nothing wrong with active, but even then. You know, Elliot does a good job doing a lot of videos on active crossovers, but even then, you still have to have somewhere to go to understand the basics of even active crossovers to a large degree. If you're talking about like large amounts of DSP, can be even more complex than passive crossovers.
Oh yeah, I mean I switched to a two-way setup when MVX sent me some components, and they're active, but it doesn't sound worse than the three-way setup I had. So clearly, I don't know how to tune my DSP.
There's nothing wrong. Like that's the whole point, though. If your first advice is just don't do it, unless it's really like if someone has like a 3/4 inch tweeter and they want to cross it over with an 18-inch woofer, then there might be some validity to the just don't do it because it's like, nah, just don't do that. That's going to be not good. But in general, the just don't do it. I'd rather walk you through and find out how serious you are. You know, are you willing to buy the necessary equipment? You know.
Yep. Because you gotta, you have to have the equipment to do it right. You need measurement equipment.
Yeah, and even if they want to just mess around without measurement equipment to begin with, you know, I'm not against that.
All right, you got some more advice? Give me some advice.
Some good advice that I've learned.
Or bad advice. Either one works.
I think some of the best advice that I've ever learned is to learn the modeling equipment that you can have at your disposal. So things like WinISD, things like XSIM, right? So I feel like there is a very large amount to learn with boxes, building enclosures. You did a great video just Sunday. It came out on building enclosures.
Yeah.
That you're talking about the material to use, what material to use. But I think just in general, going into WinISD, figuring out the essence of, what do I need to worry about ported? How does it affect when I put a high pass on the enclosure? How does that affect my rear port air velocity? Learning things like your first port resonance, things of that nature, where I don't think you can learn.
Resonance is really important for like a home speaker, a bookshelf speaker or something. Not so important for a subwoofer, but I was gonna bring the exact same thing up. Like there's this rule of thumb floating around. You need XYZ square inches of port area for every cubic foot of subwoofer enclosure. I don't know where that number came from.
Oh, right. So basically half the subwoofer size. So if it's 18, it should be like 9 inches or something of that. I hear that a lot. 12, it should be at least 6 inches.
Instead, what you do is you go into WinISD and you look at the port airspeed velocity and you make the port bigger until the velocity is reasonable. Then you look and see the port's going to be 20 foot long and you make it smaller and compromise.
Well, and the other thing, right? Yeah, no, you're right. And then the other thing as well is inside that you got to do things like adding filters. Like a lot of people don't realize adding filters. And I just did a video the other day about the Earthquake 21-inch, where I showed you how to also factor in your room gain or your cabin gain for a car. Right?
We did that live on the show. Remember?
We did do that live on the show as well. And those are the things that I'm a huge fan of, being able to learn and simulate before that. There's also programs, Jeff Bagby, who passed away a few years, I think it's been almost 2 years now.
That's right at the beginning of COVID, wasn't it? Because COVID got him, I think, right?
Yeah, it's rough to think about that it's been that long. But yeah, he still has some free software to download, such as the diffraction and boundary simulator, which will show you like where you put your tweeter on the box, where's your diffraction points going to be, where you put your woofer, where your diffraction point's going to be. And is that a good size, basically a baffle for you? Should you go with a bigger or smaller baffle based on those diffraction points?
Really important in home audio. In car audio, it's all going into a flat car door or up on a dash. So it's going to sound like it sounds.
Absolutely.
Oh, I saw something. I put a star on something here. This is interesting. Well, give me your comments on this. There are some pieces of equipment that are great value, but they're a pain to use or need extra knowledge, and people will recommend those to the new people in our community.
I'm not sure. Like, what would you consider?
This is how I feel about Room Equalization Wizard. I think Room Equalization Wizard is, and I can figure out software. I'm not an idiot. Well, maybe I am, but Room EQ Wizard, it's like I've fought with it. I've struggled with it. It's I don't know. I find it to be a royal pain, but I'm right there with him on this because I wouldn't recommend it. Oh, Horn
RSP.
Yeah.
That's another one that I'm not saying is necessary. You really need someone to help you explain that in the beginning, because the way that they have you put things in is just can be very confusing to people when they first begin. Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, so a funny story. Remember when I started off talking about helping this guy with his measurements, right? Yeah. Well, the guy that I helped out just this past weekend had RU, and his measurements weren't coming out what I believed were accurate. And so we had to go through RU and look at the settings to see if the measurements he was even taking were accurate or not.
Right.
And that's one of the things that, people always say, why do I recommend OmniMic? Yeah, it's a lot more expensive, but especially for a beginner, a lot of times it's so much easier for them to use. So the other guy that I've already helped build a couple speakers with him, he started out with the OmniMic, even though it was more expensive. And I just was honest with him. I said, look, If it was me, I'd start with the Omni mic. I did start with the UMIC 1, but I kind of wish I didn't. And then I just said, but it's up to you. You get whichever one. I'll help when I can. I can't help as much with Rue because I haven't used it in a long time. And he started taking measurements, and he's like, "Are you sure it's this?" And he's like, "Are these correct?" And I'm like, "Did you do this, this, and this?" And he's like, "Yeah." I said, "Then yes, they're correct." Like, there's literally 3 things you can do, and that's it.
Right.
Like, you know. And he's like, "Wow, man, I just thought it was wrong because it was coming too easy." I'm like, no, like, you're good, man.
Oh, I've seen that. I think Brian Steele always has fantastic comments. The EQ feature. So if you have any mini DSP products, you can basically just feed Rue right into mini DSP. And I've got a mini DSP I need to get installed in the truck. That'll happen this year. That's one of my goals. Before the show, Nick asked me, "Justin, do you have any goals for 2023?" And I was all like, no, I'm just going to like fail my way forward like I did in 2022. But one of my goals is to do that very thing, Brian. And after I do that, I'm going to stop using Rue because I hate it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so Elliot says you can't do as much with Omni mic. That's not entirely accurate. You can do everything you can with Rue. You know why? Because the Omni mic works with Rue. So you can do everything you want. The software itself may not be as comprehensive as Rue, and that's true. But part of the reason why the Rue is more complicated for beginners is because it's so comprehensive. And it's like when someone opens up Paint versus Photoshop for the first time, right? Like Paint they can start working with, and Photoshop they're like, "Oh, what do I do?"
Hey, Photoshop doesn't make any damn sense. I despise it. You know.
I knew what you meant, Ellie. I was just poking fun. I knew he meant the actual software. But the software for the main measurements that you take for speaker building, like distortion measurements, on and off axis measurements, getting your Z offset, all those types, which is everything you need to get a great speaker out, is so easy, and you're done in minutes. And you can take them virtually anywhere. You can take them in the room, you can take them outside. It's got some really great things on there that help. So
Left Hand of God has a question. What do you think of Audiobahn? I really want to build a box for mine. I could use your input. So both Nick and I do offer enclosure design services, and I'd be glad to take your money and design an enclosure. What I would rather you do is watch my video on Room EQ Wizard and learn how to do it yourself. Because that's When ISD,
yeah.
Exactly. I don't know my words anymore. But if you'd like for one of us to work on it, you can email either one of us at our email addresses that are listed on our YouTube channels. And there's tons of knowledgeable people here as you can fire questions at. I always recommend the Toys DIY Audio forums for people who will want to try to figure things out, because the people on there are really helpful and will be glad to help you out. As far as the Audiobahn brand, I think from what I gather, they're really good subwoofers. They're probably some of the best entry-level budget subwoofers out there. I think that they look ugly because back in the day they had those weird flame-shaped baskets and stuff, and so I'm not too excited by them. But a lot of people run them and they work great, and people love them. So
I have never. You know what? I don't think I've even seen them recently.
Been around forever. I'm not sure who their parent company is. But there's nothing wrong with them. I just don't like them. It's just my own taste. It has more to do with the way they look as opposed to the way they sound.
I literally just looked at them. I didn't know they still existed. I really didn't know they still exist. There's so many car audio that go in and out of business that you like Phoenix Gold was like standard back in the day and stuff, and now it's I don't. Do they still make Phoenix Gold? Is Phoenix Gold still?
I forget who owns Phoenix Gold now, but it's they still the brand still exists, but a big holding company that holds several of their car audio brands owns them, from what I gather. Either that or Amp of America. I think maybe Amp of America owns Precision Power. I think maybe Epsilon or someone like that owns Phoenix Gold. I want to say Audiobahn might be an Epsilon product as well. Either that or a Maxonics.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I trust you. It reminds me a lot of the home theater receivers now. Most of the home theater receivers now are owned by the same company, parent company. It's crazy. I mean, it's just getting crazy now to see what's going on.
V13 Audio popped up in the chat. I saw a really good post. I don't remember if it was Facebook or Instagram where he did some network or something for a boat. Looks really clean, really clean. I hope that's the right one I'm thinking. So horn resp is a challenge. Horn resp is what you want to use if you want to design transmission lines or any like horns or anything like that. And I have a copy on my computer. I opened it up and I was all like, yeah, nope. We'll have to come back to that.
Horn resp also, which a lot of people don't realize, you can actually design an actual horn as well. So, for like a compression driver.
For a compression driver. Yep.
Yeah, you can also do a horn loaded, like what you're talking about. Wow, you got the tall boy, huh?
Oh yeah, this is. You can only drink a few of these because they're 9%.
Oh yeah.
So like, wow. If you have 3 of those, I'm a big guy, I can usually hold my liquor, but if I had, 2 of those is where I'm all like, I'm out, but if you drink a third one, I can't make it work the next day.
If we hear Justin slurring his words by the end of the show, we know why.
Yeah, I'll start wording my slurs because the third one showed up.
Like, Justin, what was that noise? Nothing. I did not open another one.
There you go.
That is so funny. So, well, what about you? What is some of the advice that you have heard, both either good or bad?
Right. So I want to give a shout out to Stu. I don't know if Stu's here or not, but Stu is really good about when he sees me doing something completely stupid in the video, shooting me a message on Facebook and saying like, "Hey, man, let me give you some pointers." And one piece of great advice that Stu gave me. And I went to grab my brad nailer. I ran to the garage to grab some stuff and left the brad nailer back. So if you have imagine this is something you're trying to nail into. If you go in with a brad nailer and you do it like this, then those nails are going to fire to the right or the left. And that's how you're going to get a blowout or get a nail in your finger. But if you come in like this, the nails will blow out to the right or the left, and you're less likely to damage the product or your fingers. And so, so Stu has probably saved my fingers with his fantastic advice. And so that is some of the best advice I've gotten. I've told him several times he needs to put together a YouTube channel or something because he's top notch. He shoots me pictures of his work and it's just really good stuff. So
that's pretty darn cool. I actually didn't know that.
I may have gotten that backwards. We'll know if I ever have any bloody fingers.
If you come in, we know why. Well, Stu also, he actually, funny, he messaged me on Facebook and I wasn't quite sure who it was at first. And then I realized who it was after talking to him. But man, he was even asking me, because Stu also, if I'm not incorrect, also did pro audio for a long time.
Oh yeah, he runs a soundboard for bands and stuff like that. Stu the guy's always working. He works at a shop at the day and makes boxes at night and everything. So he has that grind going on. So
yeah, that is awesome. So if I was going to give any other good advice, I would say, actually, let me mention bad advice and good advice.
Okay.
This might go against something I already said. All right. Good advice. And I feel like this is good advice in life, not just good advice for audio. Good advice for like this man, we should be charging for this lesson right here because this is good advice. Justin, I'm going to say this. You're going to be like, oh man, that is so good. All right, let's just say it now. Good advice is don't listen to what everyone says on the internet just because they say it. Man, I don't know where to start with that, but so many times do we hear people repeating. You have already kind of mentioned and touched on this with the idea of port size versus subwoofer size, right?
Right.
We hear things like that, or we hear, don't do this. Like, for example, don't build a speaker as a cube. Okay. First of all, your external measurements can be whatever the heck they want to be. It's your internal measurements that you're concerned about. It's not necessarily the external that we're concerned about. And secondly, when we're talking about that, we're typically talking about like a full range speaker. That doesn't necessarily mean a subwoofer, right? Subwoofer can be pretty much any box design that's properly designed for it, right? So if you want to build in a cube, go right ahead. There's nothing wrong with building it in a cube. Most people don't, but you could. There's nothing wrong with that. So I would say take what you have heard, think about it, test it if you want to. If you have the means, test it out. I know both Justin and I have done that with polyfill because we wanted to know, does this do what people say? A, it didn't either make sense to us, or B, we just hear it spouted so many times. We're like, is that really true?
Right. And we both came with a different conclusion.
No, I don't think so. I think we both came up with the same conclusion. You just said, like, I don't think it makes as big of a difference. Isn't that basically what yours?
Right. I mean, you can't take a box that's horrifically too small and expect to cram it full of polyfill and fix it.
That's true.
That's the conclusion that I want to make. Here, I want to throw this up real quick because someone threw a question and I want to make sure I can answer it. I think I understand it correctly. Car battery fully charged, put a clamp meter at one of the cables. Should the amperage reading be the same as what the alternator is rated at? So my understanding of the way this works is your alternator is going to deliver power on demand as needed. And so if you have a stock 130 amp alternator in your vehicle and nothing's happening, you're just got it on, right? Nothing, no radio cranked up, nothing exciting happening. You're not going to see 130 amps. And if you were to swap it out for a 400 amp Mechman or something like that and do the exact same thing, you'll get the exact same reading. So I'm not sure what you're looking for here. Now, if you were to rev the engine up to 2,000 or 3,000 RPM and throw in a big subwoofer amp and crank it all the way up, then you're going to see it. And the way that companies test these things, this is beyond my area of expertise, AutoZone does the same test, is they put a heavy load on them while the engine's revved up a little bit and they observe what happens. So I hope that's useful. I saw a question and thought I'd try to answer it there. So
that's fine. I want to highlight Brian Steele's comment, just a couple underneath that. He said,
I should set you up as a host, so you should be able to.
No, remember, right.
Gotcha. Right. Brian Steele.
He said, particularly when it comes to transmission line design, lots of crap out there. And I'm going to, like, a lot of people don't seem to understand. There's a lot of misknowledge about this subject. And I'm in a group with Martin King, who is the transmission line genius. And I remember that, I don't know, it happens a lot where people will get on there and say, I've heard this and I can't do this, or I'm supposed to do this or whatever. And he'll just get on there and be like, where did you hear that? Like, that's just not true. And so this is why I said, just challenge assertions if it's being brought to you. Don't get set in the mindset that you definitely know or definitely don't know. Work on it. Maybe someone's saying something a little bit different than you. I recently did a video on diffraction and how I said I can look at a speaker and tell if it's a good design or not, or something to that extent, or if a speaker sounds good. And obviously I'm being a little facetious here, but to a certain degree, I can know if it's designed, if it was a good design in the begin with or not, because if we designed our baffle just a little bit differently, we could get a better response overall. So someone challenged me and said, you can't tell for sure if it's going to sound good or not. There's too many other things that are in it. And I'm like, that's true. There are more things in there, but if it's on a completely circular baffle and it's right in the center, I know that there's going to be at least one part of that I really don't like on that speaker. So I could say for sure, I don't want it. I don't want to own it. At least I can tell you that much.
One of my patrons, sent me a message and said, hey, I've gotten some plans from somebody. Can you tell me if they're any good or not? And I said, sure, zap them to me. And it took me 2 seconds to look at them and go, yeah, these are great, right? Because the thing that people do wrong for subwoofers is they make the port area too small or the box too small. And I mean, it's a pair of 18s, huge box, giant port, 6-inch wide, 20-inch tall port. Yeah, you're right. You got it. This is going to be fine. And then he said, did you model and win ISD? I said, no, but I'll go ahead and do it. And I did. And it's like, yeah, just like I said, perfect. Couldn't have done it better myself. So after a while, you get a feel for it. You just do.
Sure. Yeah. And I think you can look at a design and you can say whether you think that there's if there are certain things that you wouldn't do. Because here's the other thing that I would say that's other bad advice. If you don't mind, I feel like I'm talking too much. I don't really.
I feel like
I'm
I'm
gonna
talking too much. Go ahead, roll with it.
I'm gonna throw this out there, and you can tell me what you think about it. We know that speaker design in general is compromises, always compromising. So, for example, building a TMM versus an MTM is a compromise. It's not a right way and a wrong way. Okay. Too many times do we hear people say, well, you did it wrong. I built a TMM, the Epic Hi-Fis, and people said, you built it wrong. It's supposed to be mid-woofer, tweeter, mid-woofer. No, that's just the design choice that I made. That's different than the design choice you would have made. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to make it an MTM, go right ahead. There's benefits to both, and there's takeaways for both. And you're welcome to build it whichever way you want. But it's not a wrong way, and it's not a right way.
And
well, there can be wrong ways. But
I think that's really the right answer. So if you want to Google somebody, there's a brilliant thinker named Thomas Sowell, Sowell, Thomas Sowell. He's like 90. He's an old economist. He likes to say that there are no solutions. There are only trade-offs. And when I look at a box and say, okay, that box is just right, the box was going to sound great, but it was 10 cubic feet. I mean, so just to be perfectly honest, most people can't put it in their vehicle because it's freaking huge, right? And I think, okay, someone had asked a question, if I can find it, about using Formica laminates for driver cabinets. And I think V13 answered it correctly, that it's Formica cabinets, like for kitchen countertops, it's usually particle board. And I've heard some people argue particle board's great for speakers. I've argued that it's not, but I don't have any proof. But so I don't know how well that would work. That it's you gotta like cut dados in it so you can have a gluable surface. So I would think Formica would be hard to work with, just for you gotta do more woodworking to make it work.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, we've talked about this. Just building cabinets out of the right material is important, and getting the right amount of bracing is important. Those types of things you really need to pay attention to. And I agree with you. I don't think I would make it out of that. Now, I'll tell you this. I don't know if Elliot wants me to say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. I don't know if Elliot's still on or not, but me and him are working on a speaker. We've already mentioned this before, the perfect center channel speaker. At least that's what our hope is. And he is making
a good YouTube title.
Yeah. He's making 3D printable enclosures that you can pour concrete in and make it out of concrete. How cool is that?
You said Elliot?
Elliot, yeah. He's got a smile.
All right. Before you make the video, Nick, we need to have a powwow and do some brainstorming to make sure that we can hit it with all the stuff we need to make it go viral. Okay. Because that's the kind of thing that people need to see. And you need to get you need to get the reward for the work. And David K, bring in the super chat.
Thank you, David K.
We appreciate you, David, so much. Super chats are great. They make us feel like we're doing the right thing. And so if you think we're doing the right thing, feel free to join with David and hit us with a super chat. Thank you very much, David.
Absolutely. That is a huge, that means a lot to us, because we do take time away from our family and stuff to be here for you guys and hopefully give you topics that you care about. So that really does mean a lot to us. It does hopefully say that we're doing the right thing. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Elliot said it's lightweight concrete. And David K actually has the very first 21-inch subwoofer flat pack going to him. Yeah. That Earthquake 21, he's building it. That thing is going to be so awesome in his house, dude. Oh, geez. I watched Venom in 3D last night in the theater room. Oh my gosh, those subwoofers were just killing me. I felt great afterwards. I was like, man, we need to go get a full body massage now.
There's nothing better than when you're watching a movie and the subwoofer starts doing its job and you're just all like, yeah. I look over at my kids and I go, subwoofer.
Yeah. My wife's like, hey, Nick, will you give me a massage? I said, sure. Come upstairs into the theater room. Why? I said, just sit down and just play some test tones for it. I'll just put some music on for her. We're good to go.
So, okay, I got some advice for you. Some advice about sound deadening for a car. All
Okay.
right. Some
I'm
car
interested.
sound deadening. So, it's been a few years, but there was a website, that was okay, oddball website named sounddeadenershowdown.com. And it was some guy, I don't know who it was. I never knew any name associated with it, who had taken some sound deadeners and started testing them. So, here's a showdown. Who makes the best sound deadener? And in the process of testing them, started learning what sound deadener does. And so this is the sound deadening advice. There are several different types of sound deadener, all designed to do different things in a car. And in fact, last week after the show, we chatted about some, and someone who I knew about had some good sound deadening products. Our guest showed it to us, and I was like, okay, I've already spent a couple $100 with them. I'm going to spend some more. So I want to talk about sound deadening a little bit. And when it comes to sound deadening, there are three materials. And the first material is the one everyone's most familiar with, and that is the constrained layer dampening. It's the butyl rubber with the metal foil. And I've got some of the NVX brand, 10% off at nvx.com with code DIYaudio10. And so this is their foam back stuff, right? So this is pretty lightweight actually. And so it's the sticky butyl rubber, a little layer of aluminum, and then some foam. And this is good stuff, but the purpose of the butyl back stuff is to cause a panel to resonate at a different frequency so that you can't hear it as much. And in order to do that, you don't need to do what they call full baked potato. You don't need full coverage. So if you need something heavier than this. If you're using this, do full baked potato because it's kind of light. But if you're using their heavier stuff, or the down for sound still some like stuff that's like thicker than it's huge. If you're using that stuff, you can get away for like a sound quality build with like 25% coverage, because the goal is to add weight to the panel. And the interior of my truck doors are 25% coverage. I have people tap on them. They'll tap on the fender, then tap on the truck door, and their jaw drops like, "Wow, what did you do?" So I did my awesome shit. That's what I did. And this stuff right here is handy because it has a foam backing, and the foam is the same stuff they make yoga mats out of. And so what the foam is it's a decoupler. And what the foam does is it keeps like a panel from smacking and making a bunch of noise. So it quiets down that kind of thing. But what you want to do if you want to actually block sound is the first trick is to add mass. And that's where this stuff comes in. This is called mass loaded vinyl. And I bought a big roll of this back before I started my YouTube channel. And I kid you not, I'll show the video in a couple of weeks when I get the video upgraded. When I added this to the back of my truck, I lowered the road noise by 10 dB.
Oh, wow. That's huge.
So I've got the back seat out of
that was just to the rear though, right? That wasn't even
just
to
on
the
just on the
bottom
rear
floor or
panel.
anything.
So I've had this on the back of my truck for a while, and I pulled the back seat out, and it was louder when I pulled the back seat out because the seat absorbs noise. And then I pulled all the panels off and pulled this off and started going full baked potato on it because I'm going to need more panel resonance damping. I'll need more of that. And I noticed the road noise was just horrendous, like just driving to work, never getting over 40 miles an hour. And so I grabbed my Parts Express dB meter. And seriously, when I put this back on where it came from, I dropped the interior noise by 10 dB, which is huge. Absolutely amazing. Yeah, this is like a pound per square foot or 2 pounds per square foot. And this is what you use if you want to block noise. And hopefully in a future video, I might test out the other stuff I learned about, which is supposed to absorb the noise. We'll see how I'm going to add some of that and see if it helps some more.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, this stuff is stupid heavy. Like it came in a big roll that I can barely move, and I've used half the roll. So
get ready for your fuel efficiency to drop even more in your truck.
Oh, I get 12 miles to the gallon, that old beast. So
you're actually getting pretty good.
Yeah, I get the same mileage on the interstate as I get driving around town because that thing is just a giant brick. It's just
yeah. And I think if we were going to continue on that theme in general, if I was going to give good advice to someone on this, is don't believe the people selling the product. Look for people that have used it.
I'm gonna pick on this a little bit. there are a couple of brands that sell a product like this. It's a lot more expensive than the NVX version. And people will buy it and go full baked potato and think, oh, it's got this sound absorbing foam on it. Y'all, that is not thick enough to sound absorb anything. It's not designed to absorb sound. It's designed to muffle when panels bang together. And so people will buy this and go full baked potato with this. And you're not a complete waste of money because it does do a little bit of something. But if you really want to block the sound, you need something different than I know, good Lord, that's a 16th of an inch foam. And I'm not trying to bash the NVX stuff because it is, someone who sponsored me in the past. But theirs is as good as anybody else's because it's the exact same stuff. But that's not what you want if you want to make the car quiet. You make the car quiet, you need something heavy.
Well, and I think that's what Elliot was saying. Hey, wouldn't be surprised if there's much difference between the brands. And I think that's the same with a lot of things that we're talking about. And I wouldn't say that necessarily with drivers and things of that nature, but there is a lot of times where you pay more based off of marketing gimmicks than you do for actual quality difference. And this is once again where I like WinISD because it can at least help you with like subwoofers and things of that nature, give you an idea of what frequencies can you hit. What frequencies can you hit in your room if you add like the room curve, like I showed you how to do in the video, or in your car, you could do cabin gain, whatever. And then not only that, it'll also let you know how much power you're going to need to be able to hit those volumes. And is it going to damage the subwoofer? So for example, subwoofers, we see a lot of times they'll say and we get this a lot is, well, my subwoofer can handle 3,000 watts continuous RMS. Great. Can it do that once you put it in a box? Like, can the box handle it? Will it hit its mechanical limits? Will it not? Will it hit crazy amounts of distortion, things of that nature that, you don't want to necessarily be listening to it at? Those types of questions you can get answered better if you just try to model it. And that should give you some good ideas of answers of, are you paying more money for marketing gimmicks versus, actual performance?
And that ties into this question here that Arthur Huglet put out for us. Your opinion of the high excursion subwoofer by Dayton compared to the Max X. So that is the reference series. They have three versions of the reference. There's the HF for high fidelity. There's my favorite, the HO for high output, and then they have the HE, the high excursion. And I don't have any experience with the high excursion. I've got a couple of the high output sitting in the garage, and I've got a Max X sitting in the garage. I imagine that HE is probably a monster of a subwoofer and probably a sleeper. Probably no one knows about it. It's probably pretty awesome. I love my Max X. It's a great, fantastic driver. You had the 15-inch Max X, didn't you, Nick?
Yeah, I still do. I have it actually in the room right next door. It's in our game room now, at least right now. It's not actually hooked up yet. I have to decide if I'm going to hook it up or not, or if I'm just going to sell the MX-15. I don't know. I love the MX-15. The MX-15 is probably one of my favorite subwoofers. I don't have – so I'm going to talk – there's two different high excursions, and there's the new Dayton Audio high excursion, and then GRS, which is also –
yes,
Parts Express brand.
Yeah, one of their
has
brands,
a new high excursion. So I have not used the high excursion either. I would imagine with most Dayton Audio stuff, it's a good value. The one thing I would be concerned with the high excursion is if you're going for sound quality, can you work out a port for it that's good enough to handle the excursion amount or the amount of air that it can push back out the port?
Right. Big port.
Versus like if you're using car audio and you're going SPL, it doesn't make any difference. But I haven't used it. Those you can go down to 1 ohm though. I will say this about the GRS. I'm working on a project behind the scenes with Mr. Tom Zarbo, and we will be using the 8-inch high excursion by GRS, which looks to be a heck of a value. It's $50, I think, for the 8-inch. I would rather have that than the W5 unless I needed limited space. Like the W5 is smaller, right?
If you're not subscribed to Tom Zarbo's YouTube channel, you need to. He has this deep booming bass voice, and he is such a skilled craftsman. When I watch him build a project, I'm embarrassed for how crappy my stuff looks compared to his. He is an artisan. And I keep encouraging him to put out more videos because the world needs to see his work. He's fantastic.
I will say this before we go forward with that, though. I completely agree with everything you just said. A lot of those high excursions, though, I would look to see if you need a passive radiator or not, because that would be the determining factor of whether you want to get it. If you're going for sound quality, you might need a passive radiator, and then you want to ask yourself, is it worth the price of the passive radiator to do the build?
Yeah. All right. I had some more starred comments. Now, this is from way earlier in the show, and I don't know if this was a good advice or bad advice, but soft clipping good for bass heavy music. So is it okay to, I guess gain overlap is the term they throw out. Is it okay to crank up the gain a little bit and have a little bit of clipping when you're hitting that heavy bass? Car audio mostly, I'm thinking. And I used to say no, absolutely not, but now I have changed my mind. And yes, you need soft clipping. You want to go ahead and push it hard. So what if you break something?
So there's also in certain DSPs and stuff, you can add soft clipping. Is that what he's talking about? Adding it?
I think so.
As like the yeah, okay. Because you can do that on PA amps as well.
Yes.
And stuff like that. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is that what he's talking about? Okay.
And a guitar amp, you're adding distortion deliberately to those, right? There's a knob just for it.
Yeah, so I made a guitar amp, and I was so concerned about getting the right sound quality until I realized the whole point about guitar amp is making it sound like whatever you want it to sound like, and that's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. And so, I learned a lot doing that. It would be I would love to build more of them if I had someone nearby that was a very good guitarist that I knew that would sit there and be like, yeah, I feel like it needs more of this or this,
So this is from earlier in the show. What do you think about this? Brian Steele. Brian always has great input. Better speaker builder than I am for sure. Corners typically don't need to be braced. They're typically the strongest parts of the box already. I have to agree with that.
I agree. I agree as well. In fact, there are some people that will tell you when you build your bracing, instead of building them like a window brace, to build them more like a T.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lowercase T. Obviously shape of the box, whatever. And you don't even put them in the middle. You just make sure the four sides are connected, basically.
And that's actually one of my advice things here. The worst advice is to put your brace right in the middle for strength. Your box is strong enough already. It's supported on all four sides. You want to offset the brace because the braces are there to try to reduce panel resonance. They're not there to make the box stronger. So, and again, corners don't really need to be braced unless you do a really crap job of building the box. And then those corner 45s are great for making sure you don't have any leaks.
So I'm going to somewhat disagree with you. I agree with you, everything you just said, except for the part that you said braces are not there to make the box stronger. I would say that that's an oversimplification of sometimes.
They do make the box stronger, but you don't use them to make the box stronger. You use them to cut down resonance. It's really important in home theaters, home speakers.
Yeah, well, and I think you use it for both, but I agree. Just like when you see a subwoofer box, if you put too much power to it and it's not braced, you can see it actually bow out. And just one brace would stop it from bowing out.
But Mullen drove over a box with his truck and has a video of it, and he didn't brace that box. He's just like, let's throw a box together and drive over it with my truck. So my neighbor across the street has an old military Humvee, so I'm thinking I'm going to recreate that and do some tests. Let's try some different boxes out.
I think he's going to say, you scratched my Humvee, I'm going to send you to Arnold.
This thing is a scratch. It's I'm going to hit some more starred comments from earlier. AJC mentioned Matlab. Now, if you want to talk about some esoteric and hard to use software, Matlab is one of them. Do you know what Matlab is, Nick?
I've never used Matlab.
So Mat stands for matrix. And so if you were to open up a mathematics textbook and open up to the matrix algebra section of it and look at all the various complicated equations, you basically type those equations into Matlab, assign the data properly, and Matlab can do anything. It might be one of the most powerful pieces of software on the planet. And it's kind of cool to see someone thinking about using Matlab for signal processing. Matlab is absurdly powerful scientific research kind of software. So I don't know how to use it. I know people who use it, and I'm overwhelmed by it.
Yeah, I've never used it, but the only thing I would...
There's no reason for you to. You would have never,
Yeah, but I will tell you this. I would only use it if Neo came with it.
Oh,
you said it was a Matrix, right? You said it was a Matrix.
I'm not at all surprised to see that Elliott Designs knows what Matlab is. I bet Blake Brockus probably has used it. Wouldn't be surprised if Brian Steele has used it as well. So,
yeah, not me. All right. Is that all the starred comments?
Yes, that's all the ones I had starred.
Oh. Okay. Well, man, you got through them really fast, actually. I was waiting to hit a list and then I looked over at starred comments and I didn't see any more.
That's all good. Hey man, you got one more piece of advice?
I mean, I can always give advice, but I would say this. You're not going to agree with everything that me or Justin says or anyone else on the internet, whether it be Danny Ritchie or Paul McGowan or Blake Brockus or Elliott Designs or Brian Steele. That's okay. You don't need to stop watching, stop listening, or think someone's an idiot or whatever just because you have a disagreement with them. I see that way too often on the internet now. Like people, I feel like follow people's advice too religiously of each person. And then they say, well, X said this, or Y said this, or Z said this, and you can even do it with even some of the greats like Linkwitz. Linkwitz is a genius. Everyone knows this in audio world, but not everyone agrees with Linkwitz all the time. And what I mean, like other people, I don't mean just like us. I mean like other actual audio professionals in the industry don't always, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with disagreeing with each other. That should drive us to learn new things. And that's a good thing. You're muted.
As soon as you said you're muted, the little thing from StreamYard said, "Hey, idiot, you're muted." It literally says that. It says, "Hey, idiot, you're muted." So there's a little philosophic-y psychology stuff here at the end of the show. There are two theories on learning. One theory is that there's what they call a fixed mindset, that a person's intellect is basically fixed and can't change over time. The other one is what they call a growth mindset, the theory that one's intellect can change over time. You can grow and learn. And well, which one's correct? It turns out that whichever one you think you are is actually the one that you are. That if you decide that you can't learn new things, that you can't grow and change over time, you won't. But if you realize that you actually can learn new things every single day, and my advice is to test stuff. If I say something and you think, I don't know about that, go test it.
Research and test.
Yeah, go test it. And the thing about testing it is, I mean, you'll know after you test it.
Right. And that's the thing. There are things that you might say that you disagree. There are some people that don't agree that you can hear diffraction. Okay. I say you can. You say you can't. That's fine. Go test it. Build a bunch of different baffles. Get yourself a measurement mic. Test them. And then you have to test. You can't just test one song like that. That's one thing I feel like a lot of people do. They just test one song after. Well, okay, fine. You may not, maybe you didn't. Maybe where it's diffracting at isn't really prominent in that song. So you may not hear a major difference on that song, but listen to other songs and you will come across one that will sound different. That doesn't mean that every speaker design needs to be designed around the best diffraction free design. That's not what I'm saying, but you should try to limit it as best as you can.
So story time.
Because I don't even do that.
Story
Yeah.
time. Story time. So my wife has been listening
it's
to a
cool.
podcast back and forth on the way to work. The podcast is by the son of the country singer David Allen Coe, and it's kind of like a behind the music for country music. And every time she listens to one of the podcasts, she comes home and starts playing the music from whoever they were talking about. And before the show, I was downstairs in the kitchen and she was wrapping things up down there, and she had the C notes that I built, those blue ones that I built earlier in the year, and one of our acrylic amplifiers. And she was, whoever the show was about, cranked up, and wonderful music, is a fantastic artist with an amazing voice. And she was having the time of her life, wrapping up her chores with some fantastic music over the top and enjoying it. And I got Timothy's comment up here, and there's some awesome comments popping up right now. But Timothy right here, it's fun and stupid. That's what this is, Nick. This is fun and stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's wow, is it fun and stupid? And hey, have some fun. Be stupid. It's great.
Yeah. And everyone has different tastes.
Yeah.
There's some people that have told me that they think someone is cute that I looked at and I was like, what the heck is wrong with them?
As I like to say, Nick, beauty is in the eye of the beer holder.
Beer holder, yeah. How many did you have? Now she looks good. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with disagreeing with someone, with having a different taste. There are some speakers that you're going to like that I don't like, etc., etc. I don't care. The only thing is, if you ever came and played those Mookie speakers that I have and you said they sounded good, then I'm stopping listening to all your advice. It's going to be like, I'm done with him. He's out of here.
But no, I mean, have fun. Build your own crossover. What's the worst that could happen, right?
One last piece of advice. Buy this.
Yes.
It's like 20. It might be $50.
Is it even that? I mean,
I don't know. I mean, but even if it's $50, if you want, this is Vance Dickinson's comprehensive life work around designing speakers. I mean, this is literally a guy who spent like every day of his life learning more and more about speakers, enclosures, frequency response, everything that you could think about. And he put it in here. Did I ever tell you that I met him and talked to him about this book?
You told me that once. Tell everybody the story. It's an awesome story. Y'all listen, it's a good story.
Okay. Well, I don't know that it's a great story. So I talked to him about this because he comes to Midwest Audio Fest every year. So if you ever want to meet Vance Dickinson, come to Midwest Audio Fest. I'm sure he'll even sign your book if you want. But so me and him were talking, and I just told him what I did, and then he wanted to talk to me about that, and we started talking back and forth. And I asked him about the Loudspeaker Design Cookbook, and he said, that started out as literally a notebook that he just wrote his notes in, and that was it. It was all of his notes that he kept, and then he submitted it to be published, and it got published. And so years and years and years, it's been changed and, reworked and changed. But it literally was just a notebook of everything he learned and comprehended over time. It's pretty cool when you think about that.
Yep. And that's how knowledge is created. That's it.
I don't know that he's oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, that's how knowledge is created. It's just people trying to figure things out. So I just lab, someone trying to figure it out.
Like, you probably can't read that because there's too much light on it, but it's like, how does this, what is it? How loudspeakers work? There's how many chapters on that? 84 sections. No, there's not 84 sections, but there's like a ton of sections there, Martin Collins.
So many good stuff out there. I want to read this one at some point.
David Weems is another good one.
Oh, he has some Baba. Good books. Thank you for the super chat. We appreciate Baba, we appreciate you because you're such an active member of the community. You're here at every live stream, and you're always providing the positive energy. And you know what? The world needs more positive energy, people. It just needs more positive energy.
They do. They need more Babas. I agree.
Yep. We need more Babas in the world. Absolutely.
I completely agree. So I laugh at this because remember remember when we did the broadcast on box shape, box differences, like ported box, closed box, passive radiator, all those, right? And someone said, wow, I could have explained that in 3 minutes. That was literally the comment in there. I could have explained everything you guys talked about in 3 minutes. And luckily, like, everyone came to our rescue. We're like, well, I don't know, we need rescuing, but said, oh, you could not have explained everything they did in 3 minutes. Well, I'm going to tell you, Vance Dickinson would agree. This is all on vented box. Just right here is just vented box. Look, that does not a 3-minute read. And this is passive radiator.
You know what?
Close box. Look at how much is it close. I mean, it's just
if you can explain it in 3 minutes, go ahead and explain it in 3 minutes. Don't you understand how valuable it is to say things concisely and accurately? So whoever it was who said that, man, make the YouTube video, explain it in 3 minutes, and I'll share it with my audience, because if you can do that in a concise way, do it.
Exactly. But you couldn't, because what we discussed was significantly more in depth than just the basics. Just like that book is a lot more in depth than what you're going to get just reading up most articles online. And
Andrea D here, do it, right? Go for it. My advice is not to start small, because small things are complicated sometimes, but start simple. That's the best advice to get started, is to start simple. Just a simple box. If you can get a box together, you can do anything.
I agree. And I would say this, get some mock-ups done, take some screenshots of what you have done, frequency response, whatever. And if you don't know what pictures to take, don't worry. Like, we can help you, and throw it up on toydsdiyaudio.com. All right. Our forum section, throw it up on the forum section. We'll look it over. We'll help you to make sure that when you're done building it, you'll hopefully be happy with it versus, not happy, because it can be scary to build it the first time, especially with the cost of wood nowadays.
Yeah. That's the worst part.
I heard from someone that maybe by March or after March, prices are supposed to drop back down to pre-COVID prices.
I'm hearing that cars are going to drop down to pre-COVID prices in March. And if they do, I'm buying another one, because I don't have a back seat in my truck anymore. So I need another car. So I'm waiting to say, if wood drops and cars drop, I'm going to spend some money.
Yeah, I hope MDF. I mean, my biggest thing is I want MDF and plywood. And honestly, I want MDF to come down and plywood come down so that I can use plywood. I don't want to use MDF anymore. Like, that's the whole thing. Like, I don't want to keep. Not that I think MDF is a bad material. I think MDF is a great material. I don't want to keep having the stuff cut and circulating all in the air. I'd much rather have plywood, which is,
a little less toxic.
Well, it is definitely less toxic, but it's not untoxic per se. No word from Kirby. I hear I haven't heard from Kirby. People ask me this like all the time. I haven't heard from Kirby in years now, before COVID years.
I think he stopped uploading before I started my channel.
Yeah. Funny story about your channel. I was in the process of changing my name of my thing right when you start. And I was like, maybe the DIY audio guy would be a cool name. And I'm serious. I swear to you not. I was like, maybe that. And I went to go try it because it had not been taken forever. And then all of a sudden there's this new guy on with this channel. I was like, oh man.
I tell you why I picked that channel, that name, because I wanted it to be DIY audio, but there's already a website, so I couldn't get the URL, and I'd be mostly on someone else's website name, which could be intellectual property infringement. And I couldn't do DIY mobile audio because DIY mobile audio existed. And I'm all like, let's do DIY audio guy. And I think it's a stupid name. I don't like it, but
I love it. Yeah, it's a great name.
There's a website. No one else had claimed it. And it's me now, by golly. I am the DIY audio guy. And we've been at it for about 13 minutes over our normal time limit, Nick. So, why don't you tell us what you have coming up on your channel, my friend, and what's going on?
I dropped a video today on a projector, another budget projector. It's $200. It'll come up as $280 on Amazon. It's not $280. It's always, well, I can't say always, but At least right now it has an $80 coupon, so it's $200. And I will tell you to watch the review because there are some things I liked about it. There are some things I didn't like about it. But I am really impressed with where these budget projectors are going. I think the best thing that I would love to see is something with Haprun's picture quality, which is the first one I reviewed, which is only $80, and that picture quality is like phenomenal for a light controlled room. This one's better for a non-light controlled room. But this one has like the best keystoning ever. Like I can literally like fit that on like pretty much any shape screen, which is great. Which keystone, if you don't know, is like when you try to put your projector on your projector screen, your corners don't always match up. Sometimes they're overinflated or your top's higher than your bottom. And keystone allows you to move those corners so that they fit on the screen perfectly. So you get the perfect picture. And before you couldn't get keystoning on any cheap projectors, like literally like this little knob on the top that you would change. So like they're getting better and better and better. And it's pretty exciting to see because I don't think we're far off from getting really, really great picture quality and a projector for under $500. Like that would probably put up with some of these higher names.
I remember when projectors were $50,000. And does anybody know Brian Steele's website? I posted a link in the chat. I think it's DIYSubwoofers.org. I think that's him. But I haven't been to his website in ages, but it is just so chock full of great information. I'm 90% certain that's him. Kind of an older design. Looks like it hadn't been updated to match modern times, but that's okay. He must have dropped out of the chat or else he would have answered. So, and I haven't had a chance to watch your video yet. And I love what you're doing with the projectors. I don't really have room for a projector, but maybe one day I will. So we'll see how that goes.
That is he's still there.
Got you. That's him. That's the right one.
Yeah. And I haven't figured out what I'm going to do this week. I have a couple speaker projects that I have going on. So did you watch that Better Than Bose video?
Oh yeah, the little cubes. Yeah, the cubes. Yeah,
they looked better than Bose, but the performance wasn't as good as I would have liked. So I'm going to redo those just to pair of them. So
better than Bose.
Best than Bose. I don't know. I call those the BTBs. Maybe they'll be Bose Killers, the BKs, or the Burger Kings. I don't know.
Hey.
and then of course that center channel I talked about. Those are the two build videos I have going up next. I'm not sure when they're going to come out though.
So the last two videos I did were kind of fun videos that don't really show me doing anything. It's just me sharing some information, which are great videos to pump out. I'm working on a big project. My goal is to have stage 1 of the teardown for the base truck build coming out this weekend, but it's going to take a lot of work. I got some things coming up that's getting in the way of me getting videos out. So fingers crossed that I'm going to be doing stage 1, which is the teardown stage of the base build. I was able to get a couple of minutes edited. It's amazing. 3 days of building, 12 hours of footage, 3 minutes of video. Right.
Yeah.
I uploaded them 2 or 3 minutes to my patrons, and I hope that did you see that too, Nick?
I did. I just read it. Yeah. I just read it. That was funny.
So I hope to have stage 1, the teardown stage for the base truck build out this weekend. Fingers crossed, y'all. When I get it done, patrons will see it first. So there you go.
Absolutely. So I just want to touch on this one last before we go. I read somewhere that keystone settings should not be used if possible, and that's true. I'm not going to say it's not true because it is true. Basically, it can distort the image in those corners per se.
With the
moving
the
corners.
Yeah,
with projectors. But honestly, most of the time you're going to have to keystone no matter what. Most of the time. I mean, obviously, if you're building a dedicated room, then that might be different. But in general, hardly ever is anything actually square in your room, so it is what it is. But I don't mind keystoning, and especially a $200 projector, I definitely don't mind keystoning.
All right. Would love to answer this question for Left Hand of God, but I don't have an answer to it. I've never repaired anything in my life. I can build something, but I can't fix anything.
Yeah. You know who repairs amps is David K.
Oh, does David K repair amps?
Yeah, I don't know if he repairs speakers, but I know he repairs
He just
amps.
posted that he was reconing some Savage. Did you see that just now?
Oh, yeah. You know
Yeah.
what? Well, I don't know.
Was that David K who
Yeah,
posted there or someone else?
I don't remember if it's David K or not, but I will say I don't know what he means by repair or upgrade speakers, because sometimes people are talking about like replacing whole drivers. Sometimes they're talking about replacing crossover parts. So, you know,
Right.
there's a wide range of repairing speakers. You know, reconing and re-surrounding is different than what I think of.
All right, we're 20 minutes over, so we got to wrap it up, y'all.
Yeah.
All right, I'm hitting end right now. End.